This podcast is for you. Your co-hosts, Ben Dodge and Eric Huso at Effect Epic Consulting, believe that your potential is limitless. Tapping into this potential is how you can affect epic results in your life, relationships, and business. Welcome to the Principles of Epic Growth.
Good morning, brother. How are you?
I love how every time we start these, you say that with the same smile.
Hey, sometimes it's in English, sometimes it's in Spanish.
That's true.
Sometimes it's in Hicktok.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
It's a great day. Great day. Really looking forward to today's topic. Today's topic is something that every successful person wrestles with at some point in their career as they're reaching their successful goals and keeping their commitments, and that is, how do I balance everything? How do I balance my commitment to work with my commitment to my family without losing, that connection with the people that really matter the most to me? And we're going to wrestle with some of the principles that get in the way of balance, what balance is, what balance isn't, and give you guys some tools, some applications to help you have an epic life where you're living without regret.
Yeah. So when you live an epic life, like you certainly will benefit from balance. So look, it doesn't do any good to crush it in business and suck it in your family, so to speak, right? It doesn't do any good to crush it with your family and wonder how you're going to pay the next mortgage payment. Some people might hate that idea, but it's true. Like more than often than not, the people that I meet, right, that we coach, like they're so committed to their business because of their family, and that's awesome. I honor that. I respect it. Like family is always the most important thing, but it doesn't mean that you can be so committed to your family that they become sort of a crutch or an excuse as to why you're not working harder at work, why you're not taking more risks to grow, why you're not all in at work. Like the fact is you should be all in whatever you're doing. Yeah. And there's a time for all in at work, and there's a time for all in at home, and that's today. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yep. We've all been around people, you mentioned people that will use their family as a crutch, as an excuse to not work hard or to leave early. And we've all had employees or colleagues that consistently, my wife's struggling, my wife's having a hard day with the kids, and so they're checking out early every day, and they're using that as an excuse or as a crutch. We all have been around people that, just basically leave their family in the dust and forget about their family, ignore their family, and neither one is healthy. So we'll talk about these principles that will help you to keep those things in proper balance, where your family, if your family matters the most to you, they don't feel like you've left them behind, and where you can still have the commitment to what you're committed to in the world with your employment, with your work, whether you're a boss, a business owner, an employee. The best way to have success is to be committed, all in.
I love it.
Yep.
And so here's let's start with, I love this thought about how balance is kind of the worst word for this. Balance automatically makes all of us think of equal.
Yeah. Can you picture the scale?
And it has to be an equal
Both
thing.
sides balancing out.
Dude, that is so not what we mean by balance.
No, not at all.
I love the thought of a recipe. Can you imagine trying to make any of your favorite dishes and every single ingredient had to be equal amounts of the other one?
Yeah.
It'd be a disaster. Yeah. It would never work.
Yeah. Or think of an orchestra. If every single instrument played the same volume all the time, completely balanced, like you would listen to that for about 30 seconds and you'd check out.
More like 2. Yeah, that's chaos.
Okay? Notice in an orchestra how the conductor balances all the different instrumentation. And notice how you only have 3 trombones and you have 30 violins. Right? That's to achieve the proper balance in the overall sound of the orchestra.
Really? I always thought they just wanted more divas out there. Just kidding. My wife plays violin and by no means is a diva. Love you, sweetie. But yeah, so look, for those of you who aren't musically inclined, so my brother-in-law is, and he used trombone, not by coincidence. He's a fantastic trombone player. His whole family's musical. And his wife, or my wife, who is his sister, has been playing violin since she's 3. But for those of you who don't know music, I can't catch a musical note with Velcro. I just can't. And so, in fact, my son makes fun of me in church when I start singing. Like, he'll literally look over and tell me to be quiet. Clearly, he inherited his mother's side of this. But look, for those of you that don't get it, just think about the recipe thing, because I'm a food guy. Like, it really would be absolutely horrendous if you had equal parts of everything. So when we talk about balance, it's not equal parts. Equal parts is really terrible. It doesn't work. It's more about the flow of everything and how you can get that to work in such a manner that it's going in the direction that you intentionally choose. And you're intentionally choosing epic. You can't have epic and be out of balance.
Correct.
It just doesn't work.
And Ben, you bring up a great word that we should probably eliminate, this word balance, because it really messes people up in what they think that it really is. It is all about flow. And when we have things, when we're intentional and we've done things the right way, the right time, then we do experience that flow. And if things are out of order, then we don't experience that flow. Let me give you 2 other examples that will help you understand really what we talk about when we're talking about balance. Think about balancing a checkbook. You don't spend the same amount of money on your mortgage as you do your utilities, as you do food, etc. But when you're balancing a checkbook, you have every expenditure accounted for. Like, you know where you've spent every dollar, and it reconciles. Okay? It all comes together.
And on top of this, you've prioritized your resource of money, right?
Yep.
So with commitments and time, when we're talking about balance and flow and so forth, it's about a prioritizing concept. So which ones are going to get, priority, and then you start accounting with it, know, and so there are things eliminated, like, okay, I guess I'm not going to buy a yacht in, Venice today because I don't have the money for that today, maybe tomorrow,
Right.
And so anyways, yeah, you're prioritizing things, and you're putting them in your life in a way that you can account for everything, because you only have so much energy, so much time, so much capacity to commit.
Yeah. Another example that helps us understand using the word balance to achieve this flow that Ben's talking about. There's a video on YouTube, super popular video, over 1 million views, where this lady takes a pile of sticks and a feather.
It's crazy.
And she balances a feather on top of a stick. Then she picks up another stick, and these are long sticks. These sticks are like 4 to 6 feet long. Then she'll balance the second stick on a stick. Then she'll balance the third stick on the stick, and she creates this web of sticks. And ultimately, she'll put this web of sticks on top of her head, and then she'll, with her toes, pick up the final stick and balance this entire web of sticks, probably 20 sticks, on top of one stick. And the feather's still on there. Now, that's one of the most beautiful, extreme perfection examples of balance. And you'll notice that she doesn't put each stick in the center. Like, every stick is at a fulcrum point. She knows exactly where the fulcrum point is, so she can maximize the leverage of the weight and the placement. And when we're talking about achieving balance in our lives, that is what we have to do. You only have 24 hours in a day. How many times when you talk to somebody who's really busy, hey, how's it going? Man, I just wish I had more time. Man, if I just had 3 more hours in the day, 4 more. Well, stop wishing that, because when was the last time the sun stopped for you and just stood in place, right?
Right.
It ain't going to happen in your lifetime.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. You're not going to get 28 hours. You're not going to be able to do that. You can't rob time. Okay? Time is what it is. It is totally committed to going forward, and you're never going to get more of that. You have to maximize the effectiveness and efficiency of your time. And this example, this lady balancing these sticks, is a great example of that, where you have to understand where the fulcrum points are, where you can get your greatest leverage, where you can leverage your time in a way where you can do more with the 24 hours that you've been given than most people.
Yeah, no, I love it. Balance, it's a terrible word to me. It really is. So
let's start talking like flow then.
Yeah, it's like an intentional organization of everything that's important to you into a direction that flows per your intentions. Like that's longer than just the word balance, but that's what it is. Like you're intentionally organizing, prioritizing, and acting upon things in a way that flows towards what you're intending.
Mm-hmm.
And so you should intend epic, and you can't have epic without really good, here it is, I hate the word, but balance of all of these things, right? In other words, an intentional organization and prioritization of all of these things that you're acting upon intentionally into a flow towards things that you intend. but look, like I like the word sprinkle, because there are lots of things that are important to us, but there isn't enough time or resources for some of those things. So like, for example, music is super important to you, Eric, and I assume with your trombone thing and how you're, currently getting ready to even audition for an orchestra here in town. So, that doesn't mean you can spend 12 hours a day practicing your trombone. In fact, it doesn't even mean you can go enjoy an orchestra concert once a week. When's the last time you've even seen an orchestra?
Yeah, April.
Okay, and before that?
December.
Okay.
EVMCO concerts.
I love it. So this is sprinkling. This is the concept of sprinkling. These things are super important to you. They're part of your core. It's you're in alignment with yourself when you are a part of music, and that's because I know you. Yet you're not doing this every day, all day, because you have commitments to your family, you have commitments to work, you have all these other commitments, but you sprinkle them in your life, and you can then still achieve this feeling of what the world calls balance by sprinkling in things here and there. The real danger is to only sprinkle some of those things in, like family, when you should be giving them, a heftier dose, right? Yeah. Like that's a more
greater ingredient.
It's a bigger ingredient in your recipe for epic. And so when you're talking about, getting this all ready, then make sure that you realize which ones are sprinkleable and which ones are absolutely core ingredients that you need to give more weight to, more time to.
Beautiful. You and I have both been to leadership conferences and seminars, and people pay good money to go to those, to increase their leadership capacity, increase their ability as salespeople, etc. And it's funny, people will spend these thousands of dollars, and how frequently the topic turns to, hey, how do I balance my family life? Like my family, I'm divorced. I've lost a relationship with my kids. Like I've got nothing. Like help me. And they pay thousands of dollars to learn how to be a successful leader, and it turns back to, hey, I've lost my family. Help me.
Yep.
It's just a common theme over and over and over. Yet if you put on a seminar, hey, improve your family, nobody would show up, because nobody wants to admit, hey, I'm out of balance and my family life sucks. That's like the worst thing to admit. And so we pretend, we hide that things are good, when in reality our families are the first ones that suffer when we lose this flow.
So one of the first principles I'd recommend that comes out of this is that you give yourself permission. This is kind of adopting from a Grant Cardone perspective, but give yourself permission to be all in on those things that are important to you, and don't feel guilty about it. So for those of you that are crushing it in business, the self-employed business entrepreneurs are going to feel this probably a little more than just an employee somewhere. But if you're an employee, listen up. That is not an excuse for you not to be all in at work. Why are you going if you're not all in? And how do you expect to improve, get that next promotion if you're not all in? So anyways, for those of you who are working, again, self-employed or not, and you're all in, how do you not lose the family? How do you not, then be intentional about this. Like, remember what your priorities are, and then give yourself permission to be all in at work. Like, it's okay. Don't feel guilty that you're at work instead of with your family. You're at work for your family. But be mindful, be awake, and be present to the fact that, does your family feel like you're with them when you're with them? So clearly it's not...
Or they're with a shell of you.
It's not an equal part thing. Yeah. We already discussed that. So if I'm 8 to 10 hours a day at work, I can't be 8 to 10 hours a day with my family. Like, it won't work. I'll not sleep, right? And they'll need to sleep. So I don't need to just sit there like a creeper in their room watching them sleep. That's not going to happen. So, yeah. So when you're with them, that's most likely a less amount of time than you're at work. So what's the quality factor there, right? Be awake, be present, be mindful of the fact that when you're with them, make it count. Don't think about work. They'll know that you're just a zombie thinking about something else and your mind's wandering and drifting. don't get on your phone and check emails and this and that. When you're with them, be with them.
Yeah.
You know, make that time be incredible and be amazing. And it might only be an hour or two a day. Make it be the best dang hour to the day that you've got with them, so that they feel it. Otherwise, they're not going to feel balance, right? So when you feel like your family's slipping away from you and your relationships are just totally sucking and your wife's like resenting the fact that you're working and all of this, that's not because you're working hard. Don't be fooled by the fact that you're working too much, that's why they're feeling that. It's because when you're home, you're not with them.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because you're at work too much too. Obviously it's worth checking. If you're coming home every night at 10 or 11 and you left at 7 in the morning, like that's probably not going to work for a marriage, you know.
For most people.
Yeah. But if you are coming home at a kind of a reasonable hour, even though there's maybe longer days, whatever, and you're not really home, well, that's on you. Don't get tricked by the fact that you work too much. It's not that.
Don't use work as the crutch. Don't blame your job.
Yeah.
Don't blame your boss. Don't be a victim. Okay, you've got to own this, or else you'll be in this victim mindset and you'll be like, there's nothing I can do. Like work is so there's nothing I can do. Well, that's just victim mindset, and you're going to be stuck in this, and then you'll reap the rewards of it.
That's right. First of all, create a potentially different work scenario if you need to, but make sure that you don't suck as a family guy. Yeah. Again, be there. When you're there, be there. Be 100% there. Be the best husband you can be when you're with your wife talking to her about something. Even if you're tired and you just want to go to sleep and she hasn't talked to you in weeks, it feels like, according to her, and so all of a sudden, it's pillow talk for the next hour. Yep. You better stay awake. Be there. Be with her. Your kids are wanting to play catch, and all you want to do is sit down and get something to eat because you haven't eaten since breakfast. It was so busy at work. Get out there and play catch. Be there. Be with them. It might only be a few minutes, but to them, it's the world. And if it doesn't feel like that to them, that's why they feel like all you do is work. Not because all you do is work. It's because when you're home, you're not home.
You remind me of a quote from a book, The Greatest Salesman by Og Mandino. And I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't have it memorized, but basically he says the only way for you to be a successful salesman is when you're at work to divorce yourself from home, and when you're at home to divorce yourself from work. You've got to divorce yourself from work if you're going to be successful at home, and you've got to divorce yourself from home if you're going to be successful at work. So you've got to be all in, like what Ben's talking about.
Yes, I personally do that a little bit in the sense that my wife is pretty removed from work for me. Like, obviously there's the phone calls every once in a while that you have to take, but like I don't involve her in a whole lot of the decision and stuff because I want home and work to be so separate. I don't want it to get tangled. I don't want to taint it. I don't want to dirty it. I don't want to mess it up. I want this to be this little world that she, of course, can always have input in, but I want her to feel responsibility for it. Like, I want her to be clean and free from it, so to speak. Also, so that when I go home, like, I walk into a new world. Like, and it's a home world. Yeah. And so mentally and emotionally, it's easier for me to wrap around that by just keeping everything really separate. So when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm at home, dude, I'm at home.
Beautiful. So, application. What do we do? How do we achieve this? How do we achieve what Ben's just talking about? The thing for me that's made the biggest difference is making and keeping agreements with my spouse and my family. Okay? So, and sometimes I've been really good at this and sometimes I haven't. And so, we're all in this process to learn and be better. But making and keeping agreements with your spouse and with your family on what they can count on when you'll be home and how you'll be with them and what you'll be able to do with them. And so so that work doesn't creep into that, put it on your calendar. Put it on your calendar so that no one can creep into that. So that, everybody knows that this time is important. If there's a certain time that you need to leave the office to be home by a certain time, then, if you're a business owner, you better talk to your administrative assistant or your office manager, your executive secretary. You got to tell them, listen, if I'm not out of here by this time, you have got to get me out of here. Don't schedule my last appointment during this window because that could then bleed over and could make me lose my commitment with my family. So, get somebody on board with you that understands what you're committed to so that you can keep that commitment with your family. That's, for me, that's been one of the top things to keep work from overcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. And Yeah, so you can manage agreements. You can never manage a person.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's that one principle that you should always reiterate. You can manage an agreement with a person, but you can't manage the person. Like, I cringe when I hear somebody say, "Oh yeah, like I'm in management and I'm a manager and I manage all these people." No, you don't.
Yeah, get rid of that.
Yeah, no, you don't. If you're doing anything even half right, you're going to manage agreements because you're going to create agreements with everybody. Yeah, I love it.
Second thing that's helped me is to create a feedback loop where you can have a frank conversation. How am I doing? You know, how are you? Like, I have this idea of how my family is experiencing me, but how do you see our family experiencing me? Do you experience me as being here when I'm here? Or do you experience me as being aloof? Do you experience me as being distracted?
And when you open the door to that, receive it with like total gratitude and openness and non-defensiveness.
Yeah.
It's the secret sauce, right? You should be getting feedback in everything you do, because it's just everyone has an opinion, and if that's an important thing for you, then you just open the door to know how you can improve and be better.
So if you're back there saying, okay, Ben, Eric, this all sounds great, but the reality is how am I going to find time for this? Like, my life's crazy. Like, it's no different than exercise, okay? So everybody knows they're supposed to exercise, but there's a lot of people that don't exercise because, number one reason, I don't have time to exercise. When am I going to exercise? My wife was just meeting with somebody yesterday, a health client, and the person said, listen, the moment I open my eyes, like, I'm working. Like, there's no time for exercise. I got no idea what you're talking about, setting aside time for exercise.
I don't understand that. Why doesn't she just wake up earlier?
This person wakes up really early.
Not early enough. Or what? We can get into it some other day. Sounds like excuses.
You have to own your schedule. Your schedule's not just going to fall in place in this perfect world, okay?
It's own it or be owned by it.
Yeah.
That's literally how it's going to go for you.
Yeah.
Own it or be owned by it.
Do you own your schedule, or does your schedule own you?
Yeah.
Okay? No one's going to save for your retirement. You have to save for your retirement. It's an investment. And same with your schedule. Like, no one's going to create this schedule for you where everything can flow in your life. You have to own it. And that's where, if you've got these things where, like, this is really important to me and I don't have time for it, well, then you've got to go back a couple steps, and you got to go back to what you've declared you're committed to. Perhaps you have not been clear with your commitments and your intentions. You've overcommitted yourself, and you've got some competing commitments that don't align. And that's where you got to take a few steps back, and you got to say, okay, what am I committed to? What is it that I'm truly committed to? Narrow it down to those 2 or 3 things. What are my intentions? Okay, now what do I need to eliminate so that I don't have these competing commitments?
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's no such thing as a time management problem.
What is it?
It's always going to be a commitment problem.
Yep, an integrity
or
problem.
Or an intention
Yep.
problem, or an integrity problem.
Yep.
It's one of those 3 each and every single time.
Sloppy with your words, sloppy with your commitments.
Yeah, or you, just like on a budget with your wallet, you might have overspent, you might have overbought, you might have the desire to do this certain big, grand, epic thing, and yet you don't have the time or the resources for it because you've also got commitments to other things. So sometimes it's about timing of when you want to commit to something. You know, like, I want to ride my bike from Canada to Mexico along Highway 1 one of these days.
Oh,
like,
that'd be beautiful.
I can't commit to do that right now, you know, because I don't have the time for it, you know. Although that's one, you know, bucket list item for me to do it. I know that's a cheese ball example, but think about all the things with work and family and how we all of a sudden feel like we just don't have enough time to do everything. Well, then what part of that work thing or family thing did you overcommit to? You know, like, just go back, look at your commitments, make sure they're really clear.
Another thing is to help you, because you're not going to, like we already talked about, you're not going to extend your day. You're not going to get 26 or 28 hours in your day. So in order to get everything done that you're committed to and not sacrifice other commitments that really matter to you, like your health, like your family, you have to create people around you that can be powerful creators. Okay, you have to create the people around you that can accomplish amazing things. So this is where your leadership comes into play, where it's not just about you, it's about creating people around you, training them, helping them see themselves as leaders, helping them see themselves as people that can really get out there and get things done. And now they're killing it in your behalf as a leader, like as a business owner. Like they're just out there making a huge impact in the world because you've created them as this kind of person. Now, if you're not living this, if you're not experiencing the flow, then your leadership's going to create people like that aren't experiencing flow. And while they might have results for a time, that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable when they lose their family because they've been all in at work and they've ignored their family. And so as a leader, this really is a critical thing for you to do, is to create people around you who also have this flow in their life.
Build a tribe.
Yep.
Build your tribe and make sure that those people are incredible and they're close to you. They share your vision and dreams, whatever it is. And that's going to should be at least your spouse, and it might be issue or topic specific who's on your tribe,
Yeah.
who's a part of that. But absolutely build a tribe, create that culture. I think on this whole balance topic, where we're intentionally organizing and prioritizing our desires and our commitments to the point where we're moving in a direction of which we intend that flows together, right? Like that's really a life that flows all together is a powerful life, like a river, So don't just use two ingredients. Like there's not just work and family. Like you're a person, you've got interests, you've got desires, you've got things that make you you. That could be, for you right now, Eric, that's adding the whole trombone thing in, right? It could be whatever it is. It could be some hobby, like building freaking puzzles or something.
Yeah.
Whatever it is in your life.
Woodworking, whatever it is.
Whatever it is. Sewing or,
riding a bike.
Riding a bike, I know about that. Whatever it is, make sure that you include those into your day-to-day stuff and or sprinkle them if they're something that can be sprinkled, right? Yeah. And so that it's a part of your overall recipe. When we talk about balance, you can't have just one or two things in there that you're constantly trying to. I love the video of that Japanese lady that you showed me that did that balancing thing, because there wasn't just one or two sticks she balanced. The reason it was incredible to me is because of the sheer volume of everything that she balanced. And not every stick was of equal size, and not, and that's how life is. Like there's no such thing as equal parts or equal importance of things. Some things are flat out more important than others, period, end of story, all day long. So prioritize these. This is back to the flow thing. Prioritize what's there, give them their respected weight that you're giving them, right? And put them in an organized direction that all flows together now for you, as opposed to, what if they were all going in different directions? That doesn't really flow, right? They just constantly hit against each other and knock each other out and this and that. But if they're all going in the same direction in an organized manner, then now you've got this life that flows. And so don't neglect and don't feel guilty about having hobbies or things like that. Just make sure that in your whole organized flow, your whole balance of all of this, that they all have their different weights based on what you have intentionally prioritized. And it's beautiful. That's what you need to do.
It's beautiful. So time is the most important gift that we can give somebody. Like
a watch?
There's nothing special. A Timex watch. Yes.
Are you asking for a watch?
What do we really have, right? What do we really have that we can give that is uniquely ours? And that's our time. You got to protect your time. You got to be intentional with your time. Otherwise, the world will suck your time away from you. It will rob you of your time. TV will rob you of your time. Social media will rob you of your time. Work will rob you of your time. Okay? Random requests will rob you of your time. Habit will rob you of your time. You've got to be really clear on what you're going to give your time to. It's the greatest gift that you can give to another human being is your time. And if you see it like that, if you cherish it, then you'll keep things in the proper balance. Like what Ben said earlier with the whole recipe idea, you have your main ingredients, you have condiments, you have side things, you have garnishes. And part of the beauty of food, I love food too, is the appearance, how it's plated, the presentation. And if you get this plate and there's no presentation, it's like, But if you get this plate of food and it's just beautifully garnished, like it just adds to the whole experience. And that's how when Ben's talking about sprinkling some of your hobbies, some of the things you like to do, don't let those things fall by the wayside. Sprinkle them on there. It's not going to be something you put tons of time with, but you've got to garnish your life with some of these things that really matter to you.
Yeah, I've seen people lose what they feel like they've lost their identities.
Yeah.
Right? They feel like all of a sudden they're slaves to whatever, the job or the family crisis they're struggling with, or all of a sudden they're just consumed by this. And no matter how important or tragic some of those things are, and I say this delicately, but I mean it intentionally. Like, if you allow yourself to be consumed by something and you start setting aside all these other ingredients, all these other things in your life that make you you, and you ignore them long enough, you're going to feel so out of alignment that you're going to be miserable. Mm-hmm. And these are miserable creatures. When you meet one of these people that are just, they're just living a life that they know isn't them. They're living a life that doesn't speak to them. It's not a part of them. It's not their core. They're not in alignment, and they're just totally out of whack. Just don't allow it. Give yourself permission to go ahead and use these ingredients in your life, and just remember to organize them in a flow that works for you. So some of them are going to be every day. Some of them are going to be a couple times a year. Yeah. You know, whatever. Make sure that they're a part, and you're staying in touch with them, and you're contacting them, and they're a part of you, and they're who you are, and they make you who you are, and don't ignore them.
And don't feel guilty when you're doing
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
If watching a football game means the world to you and your boys, like, you go to that football game and you don't feel guilty that you're watching that football game. If going to an orchestra concert really matters to you and your kids and your wife, then you go to that and you don't feel guilty while you're there. Don't rob them of the experience of the gift that you've given them of your time.
That's right. There's always a balance in all those things, though, right? The caveat, of course, is if all you do is go to football games, right?
Right.
So that should go without saying. Yeah, just some people they in my experience, some of the more sad, depressed, miserable people are the ones that live in the 1 and 2 ingredient world.
Yeah.
Right.
They're eating flour, water, paste instead of they could be eating bread or cinnamon roll or pasta.
Yeah, and from their perspective, they feel like that's all they have. Like, they can't possibly take on any other things in their life. These issues are so demanding and complicated and difficult to deal with. Like, it could be the death of a loved one. It could be, listen, it could be a lot of really important things. I get it, but just watch them. Watch them and see how they literally choose every day just those 1 or 2 or 3 ingredients, and their life becomes absolutely miserable. They're just miserable creatures. Anyways, I pity it. Yeah. Now, look, we've all got big challenges that we have to deal with in life. Hopefully, you can figure out how to live a life balanced, live a life in this flow, right, where you've organized everything that you've committed to and that you're intentional about it. So that way, when challenges come, Watch how much better you can navigate them. Watch how you can go through a mourning phase, for example, of somebody who's potentially lost a loved one. It could be a complicated issue with a child. It could be loss of a job. I mean, it could be a lot of things that just really devastate you. Watch those people who live a balanced and a life with a good flow, how they'll deal with this in a way where it doesn't keep them down. Yeah, sure, they might have a bad day or two, but they're moving through this world and they're creating their world around them, and that's because they know how to balance things.
It's beautiful. Well, we've given you some great applications today, giving you some opportunities to really examine your life, know yourself. Don't be asleep to how your life really is being lived and experienced by you and by other people. You can create this flow. It's not going to happen. You have to own it. You have to create it. So follow these principles we've talked about, apply the applications we've invited you to do, and live this epic life.
That's right. Be intentional, prioritize, and sprinkle, my friends.
Beautiful. Have a great day.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Principles of Epic Growth podcast, your path to epic performance and life with incredible growth.